Prinzing, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show. We're coming live to you with episode 542. This is the weekly show about slow flowers and the people who grow and design with them. It's all about making a conscious choice, and I invite you to join the conversation and the creative community as we discuss the vital topics of saving our domestic flower farms and supporting a floral industry that relies on a safe, seasonal, and local supply of flowers and foliage. In celebration of our Slow Flowers podcast's 8th anniversary, we launched our new live stream video format, calling it the Slow Flowers Show. Welcome. Our goal is to share the faces and voices of our members, as well as tours of their farms, their shops, and their studios, and most of all, their flowers. I'll share our sponsor thank yous at the end of today's episode, so let's jump right in and get started. I have a very special treat for you in today's vodcast. Last week, I traveled to Missoula, Montana, where I gave the opening presentation to the Montana Cut Flower Workshop. The conference planners asked me to share a national overview of the insights and forecasts for the slow flowers movement, including flower farming and floral design trends. Immediately following my presentation was my friend Julio Freitas. Julio is a longtime Slow Flowers member and owner of The Flower Hat, based in Bozeman, Montana. Julio originally entered the floral world as the designer of phenomenal weddings and events, but that path led him to flower farming. He shared the how and the why that happened in his lecture, which he graciously permitted me to record to feature today for you. The Flower Hat is a floral design studio and flower farm located in Bozeman, Montana. In Julio's very short season, he grows thousands and thousands of beautiful flowers for use in dozens of weddings throughout spring, summer, and fall. The farming side of his business originated on an 1,800 square foot parcel when Julio couldn't get his hands on the quality botanicals he needed for design work. Over the years, that growing space expanded to a quarter acre, including leased land, to accommodate the Flower Hat's demand for more flowers, and now they have their own farm. I'm excited for you to hear from Julio about his approach to selling flowers to fellow florists. I know it will be beneficial. If you're a florist, you'll learn a thing or two about how to source from local flower farms. And if you're a grower, the tips Julio shares are priceless. Let's jump right in and get started.
Thank you. My name is Julio. If you're wondering why it's not Julio, it's because I'm originally from Brazil. It's a hard J because it's Portuguese, so I just make it complicated for everybody else. I am a flower farmer, and there's a laser? Oh, get the cats out. Okay, so how do I go forward? Oh, there it is. I'm a floral designer first. I've been doing floral design for about 11 years now. And I decided to grow flowers out of necessity. I remember a very specific incident on the 4th of July weekend where I had a wedding that was whites and peaches and blushes, if you remember that color palette. And then I had a friend of mine in town who also had a big wedding, and it was also whites, peaches, and blushes, and we both ordered from the same company. Neither of our shipments showed up on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, and we kept tracking it, and our sales rep was like, no, I'm tracking it, I am on it, I'm gonna call FedEx, and I'm gonna make this happen. And you cannot make it happen because it's in the hands of FedEx, and when they don't wanna put it in the airplane, they are not gonna put it in the airplane. So I decided that there should be an easier way to do it, and then not only I figured that I could grow some flowers in Montana, I also found out that those flowers were a lot better than anything that I was getting shipped in. So I started growing flowers about 6 seasons ago. I don't remember when that is, but it's 6 seasons ago. I also teach workshops now. My workshop is called Designing with Locally Grown Flowers. It's fascinating to see what you can actually grow in the state of Montana. If you've ever talked to somebody that is not from here and you say that you grow flowers, I guarantee you they ask you if you have a greenhouse first, and when you say you don't, because I don't, they ask me like, what can you possibly grow in this climate? There's a lot that you can grow in this climate, and very well. So I've been, for the last 6 seasons, trying to figure out what that is so I can incorporate that into my floral designs. So I have a workshop in the summer where we go through the business of weddings and how I incorporate local flowers into that business model. And I also sell bulbs, like Sandy said. I have a dahlia tuber sale, usually late winter, and then a fall bulb sale that starts October 15th. And that's my business model. I put this slide here, but obviously I'm talking to a crowd that understands why local flowers are much better than anything you can get shipped in. I'm going to be talking about the business of selling to florists. You can take this in any direction or angle that you want to. If you are a florist in this room, maybe you see it from the opposite perspective of buying from farmers. If you are a grower that already sells to florists, maybe you can see this as how I see that transaction happening every season. But just understand that this is my perspective on it. So when I talk about colors, when I talk about quantities, pricing, that is the reality that I see happening with me and the flower hat and the farmers that I work with and the florists that I sell to, because I probably forgot to mention that. I also sell flowers to florists, and that was one of the pivots of COVID-19 when Deborah was talking about so many businesses pivoting to adjust to our new reality. That was one of the things we did last year. We flipped that switch, and then we started selling flowers to a wholesaler, and I don't know if anyone knows Skyline in Spokane, Washington, and I sell to a couple of other florists too. So just know this is how I'm seeing it. You might just have to adjust a couple of things about it, but that's basically the gist of this presentation. But local flowers are better because they have better quality. I have a couple of slides there. People always ask about vase life, how long flowers last. I have a very interesting slide for you coming up. They have longer vase life. As a flower farmer, you are able to provide florists with much more interesting elements, and I'm so glad that Jennifer brought this arrangement here. Thank you so much for doing that. Like you have, I apologize, I'm going to destroy our arrangement. Jennifer came to one of my workshops last year too. But you will never be able to find this from a wholesaler. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called pennycress.
Green dragon.
Green dragon? Okay. You'll never find this from a wholesaler, not even at this stage. As a florist, I would love it if it's this gold, beautiful, almost dried, dead looking. Because I am a wedding florist. As a retail florist, you'll probably want this more in the green shades when it's a little fresher. As a farmer, you have the ability to control the stage that you're selling your product, specifically this one, because depending on who your client is, they may want it at a different stage, where if you're buying from a wholesaler, they only have it in green, and it will never be at this stage, and you can charge more for this because you're waiting more time, you're basically selling time. So providing your florists with unique varieties is definitely one of the benefits that you have over selling to florists. And I lost my clicker. Oh, it's right here. And you are part of the local economy, which we obviously know this is how we're making money. If you're growing flowers, if you're growing your own flowers, that's how you pay your bills. And there's nothing better as a small business owner to be supported by your community, and hopefully you can pay that forward by supporting other local businesses as well. Did I just turn the whole thing off? No. Okay, so this is the interesting graph that I wanted to show you. Does anybody know Washington Floral? Yeah, so Steve and I have a very close relationship. He and I have many deep conversations, like after hours, like I call him just to check in on him, how are you doing? Then he calls me and blah, blah, blah. So we have had many deep discussions about sourcing in the floral industry. And this is truly how flowers get to me. And just an FYI, I also order flowers in, mostly because I cannot grow everything I need and I cannot find everything that my weddings require locally. If I could, I would, but I order some in and then supplement with local flowers. So Steve and I had a long discussion about this. So I did this backwards when I did this schedule. I get the flowers from Steve this Monday. He ships it on Sunday, but he received it that last Friday. So it just sat in his cooler for 2 days already. It came out of Miami in a truck that left Monday. He received it on Thursday, but his shipping day is Monday, so he can't just FedEx it to me. He could, but then I have to pay FedEx shipping, carbon footprint, all that stuff. The flowers were shipped from Miami this like 7 days earlier, but they were cut 7 days before. So literally all the flowers that I'm getting on Monday are 14 days old by the time they get to me. And then they still need to last from here to this Saturday, which is when the wedding is. So as you can imagine, none of us flower growers in this room would ever sell flowers that have been sitting in your cooler for 14 days, unless they're dried, and then they wouldn't be in your cooler. But this is the local difference right here. There are so many. There's just so much involved with shipping flowers in, and with COVID, and Deborah talked about this again, like with COVID and the supply, I'm seeing so much on Instagram, people saying there are no white flowers right now available, support your local farmers. This is really important for you to understand and stay up to date on these, on how COVID is. We're talking about COVID, but it's important for you to understand how you fit in this puzzle that is local flowers, because your florists in your town, they're hungry for flowers. Whether they can get them because of COVID or not, they still want local flowers because they have clients that are relying on them to provide them with the best flowers, and those are local flowers, not the ones that are 14 days old by the time they get to them. Now, this is shipping from South America. I also get flowers from Holland, and I order directly from the big Dutch auction. It's the largest Dutch auction, the largest flower auction in the world, and I decided to pay more for shipping to get it to me instead of ordering through Steve. That will add another 4 or 5 days in this timeline. But even then, the flowers that I get on Monday were cut 7, 8, 9, 10 days before I get them. And the best case scenario is if I order flowers that came from California, they are still 7 days old by the time they get to me. So many people in this room who are flower growers providing flowers for clients, you know that you cut it today, you deliver it tomorrow. So that's the best timeline that as a florist I can possibly ask for, because I know that those flowers are going to last much longer than anything that I can possibly get in. And just to go back here, these flowers, they call it dry packed. No, they're just out of water. It's just a fancy name to say your flowers are dehydrated by the time they get to you. Like 4 or 5 days out of water. Oh, 1, 7, 8, 9. 9 days out of water in a box. God knows what's happening with them while they're in that box. Now, just to talk about shipping, I wanted to raise my hand when Deborah was talking. I figured out that cargo is the best way to ship flowers. FedEx, UPS, I don't know if you guys remember Mother's Day of last year, there was a big Grace Rose Farm, Farm Grow Flowers. They couldn't ship their orders for Mother's Day because FedEx said, nope, we're not going to take them. We're already, they call it bulked out. The plane bulked out, meaning like they can't fit your box anymore because it's too full. I'm figuring out that cargo is probably the best way to ship flowers. If you want to ship flowers and you want to look into that, great. But if you can find a market in your town that you can support, I think that would probably be the best bet, and stay with the local flower movement. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do. All right, so many conferences that I go to speaking and talking about, what market you can supply flowers to. You could do farmers market, you could do CSAs, you could do U-Picks, you could do florists. The first question I always get is like, how do I approach florists? How do I find florists? Do I show up with flowers? Do I send an email? Do I send a text message? I think the first thing that you need to do is find the florists in your area. Google them, ask people, most people are going to be online. If you just say florists in Missoula, Montana, a bunch of people are going to show up. Before you even send an email, before you even show up with flowers, really dig deep into what that florist does, because there's two types of florists. There are florists that do retail and they'll send happy birthday arrangements and funerals, and then there's florists that do events and weddings, and those two florists are very different. They require very different product, and the best example I can give you is brown lisianthus. If you're doing farmers market and you're growing brown lisianthus, you're probably going to get some people looking at your flowers and saying, why does your flower look dead? But if you go to a wedding florist with brown lisianthus, you can charge $3.50 a stem, and they cannot get enough of it. It's a very different mentality of doing flowers for weddings, where everything is whites and greens and neutrals and muted and muddy and whatever color they decide to give it that year. But if you're doing flowers for people that are sending flowers for, like happy flowers, happy birthday, I'm here to encourage you, or I just wanted to brighten your day. You can't brighten anyone's day with brown lisianthus. That just doesn't happen. So really, really study who you're going to go see, because as a florist myself, there's nothing more rewarding than you not wasting my time. Like, you come to me, you already know what I do, you know the flowers that I'm usually posting on Instagram, and you can show up and say, hey, I saw that you do a lot of weddings in whites and greens. I just wanted to bring you a sample of what I can provide you next season, or whatever the timeline that you want to give. So important. I'm like, thank you. Yes, I actually have a wedding in whites and greens this week. I can totally use these right now. Let me write you a check. And you're like, no, don't worry about it. This is just a sample. But start cultivating those relationships in a more meaningful way, where you actually do understand what they're doing. Because as flower growers, right now is the time when we start getting seed catalogs, and you want to order everything because everything is pretty, and whether you have room to grow all of them or not, you want to grow all of them. And it's so overwhelming, and I've gone through many seasons where I ordered many things that I probably shouldn't have. And this understanding who your client is going to help you dictate what your field looks like. Perfect example, I just hosted a class for 6 people on my farm. My field is not colorful. My field is not a show field. Sure, I have $6,000 out there. That's great, because that's mostly what our business is at this point. But these ladies walk out there, and it's white, peach, white, green, and white. There's an entire bed of phlox, and they don't understand why. I'm like, because this is how I make my money, right here on phlox. I cannot get enough phlox. I grow so much phlox every year because I need so much of it. And if you don't know which phlox it is, it's this one. There's cherry caramel, and then there's creme brulee, and they also smell really good. I can never get enough of this. I grow so much of it, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that was fun. I'm like, fun for my bank account, yes. So if you want to have a show farm where you have people come over and they can cut and have fun and have that beautiful experience, take photos, post on Instagram, you're probably going to have more flowers that you would sell to a retail florist versus a wedding florist. We want interesting whites. We want fluffy things, and agrostemma is probably my favorite example. I can never grow enough agrostemma. I use so much agrostemma in white. It's insane, and I can sell it to florists if I want to. There's so much of it always. Between agrostemma and phlox, those are probably the 2 things that I use the most. But going back to how to approach your florists, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you're a florist in this town, you know you're busy. In this room, you know you're busy all the time. There's no Monday, Friday, they're always busy. So sometimes as a farmer, you don't want to intrude in their schedule either. So sending an email is usually better to introduce yourself. An email is a great way for you to show, oh no, back to my laser pointer. I would usually send an email in the off season because you don't have anything to show in the winter, but it would be a great way for you to start establishing that relationship for the following season. Unless you have a bunch of dried flowers, then bring me dried flowers. You can use the opportunity to send an email to include links to your website and Instagram and say, here's what I do, click here, you can check my portfolio on Instagram of what I've grown, or this is my website, you can just keep in mind for next season. And then at least even if you don't have the flowers, at least you have a visual to show them. And if you learn one thing today, one thing, write this down. Take time out of your day. I don't care how tired you are, how sick of flowers you are that day because you worked in the heat, in the rain, the cold. Take photos of everything. You better off having thousands of photos to shuffle through to show to that florist than go back to your photos of the summer and realize that you don't have a single flower of a dahlia that you can show them. Take photos of everything. My staff really hates me for that. It's a busy wedding day on a Saturday. We're loading up 3 U-Hauls trying to get out of the studio. And I'm like, wait. Grab one centerpiece so I can photograph. And they're like, no, we don't have time for that. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. We'll have time for it. Just photograph everything with your phone. There's no excuse. You don't need a fancy camera. Photograph everything. The only lesson if you learned today. Okay, you can also explain your ordering process. We're going to talk about ordering processes later. And then offer to bring a sample of flowers. If you're emailing in the winter, you can do that in the spring, first thing in the spring. Entirely up to you how you want to work out that timeline. But if you're emailing them in the spring and you have tulips, like sure, by all means, like offer to bring them some tulips. But if you visit in person, it gets fun and it also gets really tricky because if you show up on my farm, on my studio on a Thursday or on a Friday, I don't have the time to talk to you, and then you wasted my time, and then you wasted your time. But if you show up on a Monday, sure, I can probably have a talk with you because I'm like starting to unpack flowers, and I'm probably harvesting my own, and I'm trying to figure out what else I need for the week. Mondays are usually a good day to visit wedding florists. You can drop your business card. If you make an appointment, which would probably be ideal, that's great. But if you don't make an appointment, don't expect the florist to make time for you at that time. Just say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I run this flower farm. I just wanted to drop off some flowers. Here's my business card. Let me know what you think of them by the end of the week or whenever. And you can follow up with an email the following week. Like, hey, I dropped off those flowers. Just wanted to see how they worked out. But if you just come unannounced, don't expect them to have time for you because most likely they won't. And no offense to you, it's just because we're all busy. So be mindful of schedules, and then one of the things that you can do if you make an appointment to introduce your product, and always bring flowers if you do make an appointment to make an impression. Yeah?
On bringing flowers, would it be better to bring a sufficient, grower bunches so that they can use them, or are we trying to show range and a bucket that's got, the 60 things we're growing, and maybe like one stem of each so that they can see colors and variety?
I think that goes back to like understanding what they do. If they're a wedding florist and you see that they use a lot of blushes and eucalyptus, and if you're growing eucalyptus, I don't know if you can grow eucalyptus here, I don't have the time to grow eucalyptus, but if you see that they use a lot of eucalyptus, then you're like, I have the best eucalyptus you'll ever see, so here it is in this bucket. Just bring like a sample of 6 bunches of something, and then that's it. Yeah. But if you do make the appointment and they say, no, come on in, let's have a chat, I want to see what you're growing, that's the best time for you to confirm all the things that you saw online in your research about them. Ask them what their season is. Like tulips are probably the best example of that, tulips and daffodils. My wedding season does not start until June. So for me, if you have tulips in March and April, you're no good to me because I can't use them. I don't have an outlet to use tulips that early in the season. But if you have ranunculus later in the season, like I always try to do, then yes, like bring that in because I would love to know where the local source is for ranunculus because I know they're going to be better, they're going to be bigger, they're going to be more beautiful. So just understanding your season and how it fits in their season, because the bottom line is like if you're growing things that florists around you cannot use, there's no point in putting effort into that. So for example, there's no point in putting effort into tulips if you can grow hardy annuals in that same space, and you can have larkspur, you can have sweet william, and you can have like hardier plants that will bloom earlier in the spring but after Mother's Day. Okay, so this is a generalization. I know if there's a florist here, you will probably say this is not true. None of this is true. This is just a generalization to start giving you some food for thought as to what you could grow what seeds to buy for your next season. But retail florists are usually looking for bright and happy colors. Those are the two words that come to mind to me. They're trying to make sure their arrangements brighten somebody's day. So again, no brown lisianthus, but you can definitely grow zinnias, and you can grow like Sweet William, you can grow calendula, you can grow ranunculus. They'll love you for that. That's what they're looking for. Retail florists usually have year-round sales, which goes back to the tulip. If you're selling retail flowers to a retail shop, they will probably appreciate your tulips when they come on, but as a wedding florist, doing weddings in June, that just doesn't quite work. And if you're wondering, like, what are you doing the other months if you're only doing weddings between June and September? There's more business out there. Like, we're planning for those weddings, and the thing to understand with wedding florists in Montana is that we only have 4 months to make money, so there's a lot crammed in that wedding. So one of the florists that I sell flowers to is Moms in Whitefish, and I texted her and I said, Kara, what colors do you need this week? And she said, just send me anything you have. I have 28 weddings this week.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, all right. So I just got everything I could and just sent it to her because she can use anything. So, but like that's her busy season. So the other months we're just planning for weddings, where retail florists have somewhat consistent deliveries throughout the entire year. If you're selling to event florists, I mean, that looks, it looks dead. Like, it looks like there's no color, but that's what these clients want for weddings. That's what, you know, if you're thinking like farther into that process of doing weddings, this is what publications are looking for. Like, I just got published in Over the Moon yesterday. It's a blog, it's a wedding blog. The entire wedding was white. And they loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. I'm like, yeah, like, it's just whites and blues, like light blues. But that's what weddings require. That's what wedding clients want. So the thing to also remember with wedding florists is that we don't care about stem length. So a lot of the times we have all these big, long, straight, tall stems. Like, we don't really care about that because we chop all that stuff down to make centerpieces. Sure, if we're making a big, tall installation, then yes, like a conversation should be had with your florist as well, what they need. But for me, like, short stems, I don't care. Wonky stems, I don't care. Like, they're all like, they make this thing that make the arrangement look really pretty, so then I don't have to try to figure out how to make those curves and how to make those lines. Like, chocolate lace is probably the best example in this arrangement. But we are seasonal. So if your wedding florist is not doing weddings in the winter, we are very seasonal. So just keep that in mind. Just to give you a visual of what a retail florist would look like versus a wedding florist would look like, this is when it comes to mind the whole conversation about what grows well in this area. So obviously we can grow zinnias here, but instead of growing the large salmon ones, grow the little Cinderella ones. Doesn't matter if they're singles. I know everyone hates them because they're not always doubles. I don't like the doubles, quite frankly. I prefer the singles so much more. Florists cannot get enough of this. This is not something that gets shipped in. So if you're selling it to them, it stays in water the entire time. It goes from your farm to the bucket, from your bucket to their centerpiece. It always stays in water. Vase life should not be a problem. If you're growing lisianthus, you can grow purple lisianthus for your retail florists, but grow like this is Voyage Champagne, I think, or light pink. Really pretty. You can grow yarrow. This is terracotta. You can buy plugs for this. Really pretty. It's orange and it kind of turns to yellow. Really great vase life. Dries really well. But I'm probably looking for more whites and blushes for weddings. Cosmos, same thing. That's Rebenza. There's Rebenza in this arrangement too. But Psyche White is probably the one you're going to sell the most. Not even the doubles. Probably Psyche White. And then dahlias too, obviously. Like, you can grow, there's an assortment of dahlias you can grow. But florists, local florists, we're really looking for cafe au lait, white, that's it, and burgundy. Burgundy is also another one. Oh, and grow chocolate lace too. Oh, not chocolate lace, chocolate cosmos. That's a really hard to ship flower. I usually have to buy 200 to use 50, so. But locally, they grow great. And not to advertise for anyone, but maybe you have better luck than I do, but you can find the bulbs from like Ball or Glocken or whatever they are now, I don't know. But you can find the bulbs for 50 cents. You get what you pay for. I bought them. They never grew. So what I do is I just buy the plugs from selectseeds.com. They cost $7 a plug, but they work every time, and you definitely get your money back.
What flower was that?
Chocolate Cosmos.
Okay.
And they smell like chocolate too, and your florist will be like, oh my God, they do. And you're like, I know.
On that note, Farmer Bailey's also sells plugs with those chocolate concentrates.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Oh, great. There you go. Farmer Bailey sells a lot of great. In fact, not to advertise for him, but these also came from him, and I think that's about it. Yeah, he has really great Lysianthus plugs.
And all of his stuff starts out at Grow and Sell.
Yes, and he always sells select seeds, sweet pea seeds.
When's the best time to buy like Lizzie plugs? Does anybody know?
I think you buy them in the fall for spring shipping. I got mine in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got ours in March and we ordered in November, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
Farmer Bailey. He's out of Vermont. And this farmerbailey.com, and then he also sells farmerbaileyperennials.com because he sells both. All right. Any other questions?
How ridiculous. I know those are really popular.
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Ridiculous?
Ranunculus. These guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's those other ones over there, the pale pink ones.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
These are Hanoi. They're extremely expensive to get the corm, but they're so worth it. They hate heat, so you have to plant them early in the spring. As I found out, I wasted so much money on these because I thought I could get them to bloom in July, and you cannot. They really do not like heat.
So you have to order those, because they use those a lot in weddings.
Mhm.
It's the summer, so you have to order those from other places, I guess.
Correct.
'Cause when they grow them here, I guess I've only seen them at the farmers markets earlier.
Like April and May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So I have to order them in.
So we can't, I guess you have to, well, you have to have a hoop house or something to grow them, because it's too early too cold to grow.
Or you can do a little tunnel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I do. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna get out of the way if you wanna write this down. I don't think I feel like I have like dogs when they have the invisible fencing. I can't go beyond that because I get zapped. So I'm just gonna stand over here if you wanna write this down. This is a very basic list. Yeah, or you can take a photo. Yeah, this is a very basic list of things to me as a florist that I think would be good sellers for you. What you will notice though is that there's dahlias for retail florists, there's dahlias for event florists. Again, these are dahlias in hot pink, purple, oranges, yellows. These, Cafe au lait, Blizzard is a great white dahlia, and RJR is a great white dahlia. They're both ball. So you'll just have to modify the colors that you're growing. Grow zinnias, yes, but grow Venere salmon for one, Zinderellas for another. Don't waste your time on white zinnias, by the way. They're white, but they're not great. They look dirty. I'm putting this here. I fell in love with this Sanguisorba. It's Sanguisorba, I think it's officinalis. I don't know how to pronounce anything, but it blooms July 4th. I sold every single stem I found I could harvest. If you can, you will not find seeds for this. You will have to find plants. Florists love it. It's a tiny little berry. It looks like a mulberry, but the stems get so tall, probably 4 feet tall. It's really great for weddings, and they last forever. They dry great. And sorry. Agrostem is another one for florists, just creating white. There's a white and a purple. Ocean Pearls is the white. The purple just looks terrible. No one should grow that.
What do they look like?
No offense to the breeder, but it's terrible. What do they look like? Oh, do I have it in here? Well, I do, but it's that. So, I don't know what it looks.
Like a filler plant?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can harvest basically the whole plant and just sell that as one bunch. All right. So handling sales. This is how much time do I have? 10 minutes? Okay. This is the most important part to me, besides taking photos, which is still the most important. Handling your sales to your florist is probably to me, it would be the biggest hurdle I would have to overcome. You have to make it easy. And there is no other way to make it easy at this day and age but with e-commerce. When you send an availability list as an email, I will receive that email. I'm just gonna wonder, how much of that do you have? Sure, you can put your quantity in that email list or in that email, but then I don't know if 5 other people ordered the same thing. Let's just say you say, I have 10 bunches of sweet peas. Great, I want 10. But then I don't know how many people responded to the email before me, so I have to wait for you to respond to me with your availability and say, well, I only have 2 now. I still need 10 bunches of sweet peas. I still want to buy 10 bunches of sweet peas. And then it becomes this back and forth thing. It can take 3 days to finish a transaction. And then once you fulfill my order, you're going to have to take the time to go back to my email and figure out what my final order was. And you're going to have to rewrite that whole thing again in an invoice. And you're going to have to send an invoice. And then you're going to have to wait for me to pay you. It is so much time. I don't have the time for that. My best advice for you is to invest in some e-commerce. Now, when I say e-commerce, we all shake because, like, what does that even mean, right? Like, I don't do websites, I don't do any of that. But there's some really great and easy tools that you can use for e-commerce. My number one solution to everything in my business is JotForm. Take photos, make your e-commerce easy. JotForm. You can create anything you want in JotForm as far as order forms go, or just forms in general. They can connect to a PayPal account, they can connect to your Square account, they can connect to many credit card processing companies. What you will have to do is put a lot of work up front. The more work you put up front, the easier it is for you in the end and for your florist in the end, and the more sales you will have. I guarantee you that. If you take the time to load up your inventory, I'm just going to use JotForm, but if you want to use Shopify, great. If you want to use Squarespace, great. If you need to have somebody help you with that, I promise you it'll be worth it if this is the avenue that you choose to sell your flowers through, or meaning if florists are your target. I'm just going to say JotForm, but when I say JotForm, just know it can mean any other platform you choose to use. Equid is another great one, ECWID. It's another great one, super easy to use. But I use JotForm for most things in my business. If you take the time every week to load up your inventory with those photos that you took, you load your inventory up on Wednesdays. Let's say you open up your sales on Thursdays. You have to have photos of everything because we buy visually. We're very visual people. Like your idea of a peach ranunculus can be very different than my peach ranunculus, because to me, peach and salmon are very different. And I may need both. If you have both, I may buy both. But sometimes I just need peach. So if you have photos of everything that you grow on your website, it sounds like a daunting task. But guess what? You only have to do it one time. And once you take a photo of that orange dahlia, you can just say orange ball dahlia. You don't have to say Jawi Nikki, Kamano Buzz, Cornell Bronze. Like, you don't have to do that. You can just say orange dahlia ball. And then you just load them all up in there. The more work you put up front, the easier it is. So as a florist, I know that you're going to open up that website on Thursday morning, and I'll be ready. And I'm just going to go in there, click, 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 click. I want 7 bunches of this, 3 bunches of this. And then your website, once you load that up into JotForm, for example, JotForm will tell your client, no, he does not have 7 bunches of foxglove. He only has 5. I'm like, great, I already know he only has 5, so I'm just going to pick 5, and I'm going to check out, and then I'm done. And then you're done. All you have to do is print that form and fulfill that order. You don't have to do invoicing. And then the following week, if you don't have foxglove, You just disable that one product. The picture stays there. If it comes back next week and you have more, great. You just enable it again and you tell people how many you have. It's fascinating just how much money you can make just by being visual. The reason I'm saying that is because that's how I sell my dahlia tubers. If you've bought dahlia tubers for me, you know there's a picture, me holding a big armload of them. Like, I know it sounds really cheesy, but it sells. There's a close-up, and then there is a picture of them in the field. Those are the 3 shots I have of most of my dahlias, because I know that people are going to buy with their eyes first. And if you can do that with your flowers, I think you're going to have a great return on all that time that you put up front. And then next year, when you grow those same flowers again, guess what? You don't have to load new photos. They're already in there. You can use the same photos. It's just so much work up front, but then it just makes the whole entire process so much easier. There's no back and forth in emails. You can have a note section at the bottom that says, hey, if you have any specific requests, put them here. I always say, like, to people that I order that do this system, I always say, hey, I also need 5 bunches of something with a texture in white. I need 4 bunches of this. And then they just show up, like, magically. They just show up, and they're like, here you go. And I'm like, great, thank you. I don't have the time to go back through the bucket and say, I don't need that. Like, it's texture. That's great. It's going to be fine. Just make that process easier for your clients, because your competition is the people in Holland who have their website figured out. It's the people, like, it's the wholesalers that you're competing with. So not only you have a better product, but if you make that process a lot easier, there's very little chance, so there's very little reason why they would go to a wholesaler versus your own flowers. We can have a whole conversation about e-commerce for hours on end, but just look into JotForm to start. It's really easy, and it's free to start. The other thing that I will say about selling to florists is we fit in your schedule. You don't conform to ours. Like, you can't conform to all these florists' schedules and hours and when they want delivery, when they don't want delivery. Some people want delivery when they're open. No. You create the rule and you educate them on how you operate, because you have to be able to function as a business on your own, and you can't have everyone dictating it how you do it. So you tell them, I'm going to open the website. Sure, if you want to send an availability list and it works for your clients, great, go for it. But you tell them, I'm going to update this on this day. You have until this day to order, and I'm going to deliver it on this day or have it ready for pickup. So I think, like, most farmers will do a list on Thursday morning. You have until Sunday to order for Tuesday delivery. That's like a usual timeline of how the ordering process works. If they want to pick up, great. But schedule a time, like, hey, can you come between like 7 and 10 so I can have all these buckets out the cooler, because I need to move on with my day. I need to fill that cooler up again with more flowers. So just make those rules. Don't let people dictate how you operate. That's it. Question? Yeah.
I just wanted to
I can't go there, I'm sorry. Hello. Young.
So I own a flower shop, and I just could not agree more with you. Like, it sounds, you're amazing. I just want to, like,
I know, I wish you could do that, but look, the invisible fencing.
There is, like, power in the decisiveness. So if you choose the price and you choose the time for you to deliver and you choose your exact things that you have, it makes it so much easier for everybody, instead of like, well, I can deliver on these days, and I guess, would it be easier if I did it this time or this time? Like, just come and say, this is what I have to do, this is the time that works for me, or, you know, like, this is, I guess, like, more power in the decisiveness
Yeah.
of your business. Like, go into it knowing this is what I'm gonna do, and then if something really doesn't work, then you can, like, figure it out. But I think that's such good, powerful.
Yeah.
powerful
Thank you.
skill.
Okay, I think I only have one more slide. This is just a bunch of random stuff. I couldn't fit in any of the slides, but just odds and ends, rules, whatever you want to call them, I don't know. But number one, don't allow people, if they come to the farm to pick up flowers, don't allow them to wander. because it will waste your time. You already have the business. You've cultivated that relationship so far in advance. Them walking through your fields just to see what you have is an experience for them. It's a waste of time for you. You can definitely, that's why I said you can definitely schedule farm visits, and you can have florists come like, hey, I would love for you to come to the farm like on your own time, where you dedicate an entire day to do that. But people that come to the farm just to walk around and take photos for Instagram, that's not okay. Don't let them do that. They just get overwhelmed, and then they want to talk, and you're like, oh my God, I have so much to harvest, and they just want to linger because it's so beautiful what you do. You have my dream job. I'm like, oh, then you come weed and harvest in the rain and the sleet and the snow. Another really big, going back to we buy with our eyes, never show up with exactly what they ordered. Never, 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 never. Always have extra stuff in your van. Jamie from Killing Frost Farm can attest to that. I probably buy a lot more than I need from him just because it's in his van. If you're noticing that I'm buying whites and blushes and burgundies that week, and you have product that you only had 1 or 2 bunches of, so it wasn't necessarily worth your time to list that online, just bring it. I'm probably gonna buy it, and florists will buy it. If they see it, they're like, oh yeah, sure, chocolate cosmos, 1 bunch will be great. I just need that for the bridal bouquet. Bring extra stuff in the color palette that you're selling that week, and you just say, hey, do you want to see what I have in the van? Sounds a bit creepy because you think van and whatever, but like we will buy with our eyes. Upsell. If somebody ordered cosmos, they ordered white cosmos, and you say, you needed 10, I only have 5. Don't let that conversation end there. I don't know what you have blooming. I'm not keeping track of your seed orders. I have no idea what's blooming in your field. It's your job to sell. You're in the business to sell, so sell it. You say, I don't have white cosmos, but you know what I do have? I have the best white straw flower you'll ever see. I'm gonna bring you some. You make the suggestion. They don't know. You say, well, I don't have white phlox, but I have white they're probably asking you for the like creme brulee phlox, right? You said, I don't have that, but I have perennial phlox. David, by the way, is the best perennial phlox ever. You make those suggestions. They are clueless, because guess what? You never let them walk through your farm, so they don't know what you have. It's up to you to tell them what you have. Another this is a big must do for you. If you're like me, and I hope that you are, we try to buy as many seeds from the catalog as we can, even though we try to narrow it down. Like, we still are growing so many different varieties of things. It's very important that you take the time to understand harvest stages for each of the things that you're growing. Each flower has a different harvest stage, and for you to compete with that 14-day schedule that is of flowers being shipped in, you need to understand the harvest stage, because if your flowers are sitting on the plant for 14 days before you harvest them after their prime has passed, you're back on that same schedule. So then I'm thinking, well, your flowers don't last, and it's probably because you're harvesting them at the wrong stage. By the time you harvest them, they're too old. So dahlias, zinnias, sunflowers, they all have very different stages of harvest. And then communicate with your customers at the end of the season. Visit what worked, what didn't work, what you could do better. Take criticism. They'll probably tell you what sucked, and you just take it. Don't take it personal. Just take that as a tool for improvement, because a lot of florists work in different ways, and if there's something that you can do better for them, by all means, I would say incorporate it, because at the end of the day, growing flowers is beautiful, but it's a business, and you have to make money at it. And the last thing I'll say is offer buckets by color. A lot of the times, again, going back to you not having enough stock to list, to make it worth your time to list it on the website, just offer buckets like white, peach, textural, greenery, orange, wildflowers. Always throw wildflowers in there, because there's always a wildflower wedding. And that's like larkspur, sweet William, poppies. But just offer the buckets by color, because a lot of the times I just need extra things. I don't know what they are. I just need extra things. And if you bring me a bucket of white flowers that's random things, then at least to me as a florist, I always have a line in my wedding flower recipes that just says extra, and it could be like $500, it could be $2,000, it could be $50, but I just have that line there, and that's probably where that budget is going to be spent, is when you just have random things to offer me, and I'm like, great, I'll take it. It's easy. It's like I'm not picky, and you just tell your clients, don't be picky. You tell them how you're going to work, and if they just want orange flowers, great. You don't have to have a 10-stem bunch of anything to put in a bucket. A bucket is a bucket. It's an assortment. If you want to do bunches, great, but if not, if you just have 5 stems of something, just throw it in there. No one is going to complain. A bucket is a bucket. That's it. I talked way too fast. I got zapped so many times. What an experience. Do you have time for more questions? Are we good? Any? Yes.
When you're buying from other firms in the Gallatin Valley, and I know you've had employees that have gone off and become flower farmers,
Yep.
et cetera, what are kind of like 2 or 3 things that people do when they're selling you flowers that are irritants or that slow you down, or the don'ts that you could tell us and we wouldn't do it?
So her question is, what are the do's and don'ts, or the don'ts, just the don'ts, these are all the do's, the don'ts of selling to florists. I think that showing up unannounced is probably the biggest one for me, because as somebody that really cares about local flowers, I'm mindful of the people around me and I want to help them, but I also need to run my business. And if you could just make an appointment, I would love to talk to you, but if you just show up on a Wednesday when we're out in the field harvesting, like my entire day gets thrown off, and then I can't. Then I start thinking, like, that's your first perception, and it's really hard, or first, what is it called? First impression, sorry. Like, well, you could have come on a Monday when I don't have, my weddings aren't as close to the end of the week. So I think that would just be my biggest one, is just make an appointment. And then also, if you decide that florists are going to be your market, make sure that you cater to them. Even if you do farmers market and you do CSAs and you do U-Picks, if you decide that you're going to sell to florists, I would highly recommend that you actually do put the effort into cultivating that relationship. Like, maybe every time you bring an order, you just bring them some, like, a pack of M&Ms, and then you become the M&M farmer. Because then they're going to expect the M&M every time, but like, you differentiate yourself somehow. But when you start doing farmers market that requires a different product, and then you add CSAs, and then you add florists, like, whatever you decide to do, don't let it be like a side business, because the more effort you can put towards it, the more benefit you're going to get from that. So Calliope in Bozeman is probably the biggest example of that. Alexis worked for me for a season, and then she went on and did her own business, and her flowers are amazing, and her business is just selling to florists, and she does her own wedding show, which I obviously do not care about. I'm not going to stop her from doing that. She grows the best flowers I've ever seen. Like, I'm ordering from her every week throughout the entire season. Now, Kokoro, on the other hand, also in Bozeman, their market is farmers market. They are so heavy on farmers market. They load up that booth. It's probably the best stocked booth I've ever seen. It's never empty. Mary is always cranking out bouquets on site, like, and everyone loves it. I hear from every person that buys from them, because I also have clients that buy from them because they're in Big Sky. They always say, like, her flowers last forever. I'm like, yes, because she's great at it. Like, she's catering to those clients, and she's growing not like the dead looking Lysianthus. She's growing like the best sweet peas and purples and yellows and oranges, because she knows that that's what those people want. So whatever you decide to do, just put your attention into it. Don't try to hit every market, because you're going to be so stressed out all the time, and you don't really have a focus on what you're doing, and it becomes very hard for your brain to understand what you're trying to focus. And then as a client, I will see that, because your flowers are not harvested at the right stage, or like your billing is not correct, and because you're going to have different pricing for everything too. So, one more? Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. There was such a wealth of great information from Julio, and I just thank him for sharing his knowledge with us. He was so kind to give me permission to put this out on the show. I will share the audio of his presentation as a podcast episode next week. You'll also be able to find lots of photos and social media links about the flower hat, and that will be at deborahprinzing.com for episode 524. And now just a few thanks to our sponsors. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 880 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor for 2021, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting more than 20 U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $9 million of U.S.-grown fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. Thank you to Roadie, an on-demand delivery company offering affordable same-day and delivery schedules. With a network of friendly local drivers who handle each delivery with care and one-on-one support from a designated account manager, Roadie guarantees a smooth and reliable delivery experience from pickup to delivery. Sign up for your first delivery at roadie.com/slowflowers and use the promo code slowflowers, that's just one word, and you'll enjoy a $5 off discount. Thank you to flowerfarm.com. Flower Farm is a leading wholesale flower distributor that sources from carefully selected farms to offer high-performing fresh flowers sent directly from the farm straight to you. Find flowers and foliage domestically from California, Florida, Oregon, and Washington by using the Origin selection tool in your search. Learn more at flowerfarm.com. And a final thank you to the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. Formed in 1988, ASCFG was created to educate, unite, and support commercial cut flower growers. Its mission is to help growers produce high-quality floral material and to foster and promote the local availability of that product. Learn more at ascfg.com. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks for listening, commenting, and sharing. It means so much. As our movement gains more supporters and more passionate participants in the importance of the domestic cut flower industry, the momentum is contagious. I know you feel it too. I value your support, and I invite you to show your thanks to support Slow Flower's ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at deborahprinzing.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one vase, one stem at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.